And stations is now 1 minute before the start of hour number 1 of The Line of Fire with Dr. Michael Brown. 1 minute from Mark. 1 minute. And stations now the final time check before the start of hour number 1 of The Line of Fire with Dr. Michael Brown. 30 seconds until hour number 1 from Mark. That was our final verbal time check for The Line of Fire with Dr. Michael Brown. We'll have a long tone at 10 seconds before, followed by a short one at 5 seconds. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
So why should we stand and speak out about cultural issues if we're ministers of the gospel? Or do gospel and culture intersect?
It's time for The Line of Fire with your host, activist, author, international speaker, and theologian, Dr. Michael Brown, your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. Michael Brown is the director of the Coalition of Conscience and president of Fire School of Ministry. Get into The Line of Fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. That's 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
As your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution, I want to address something we've addressed before and strengthen and encourage and help and equip you as well. Why should we speak up? Why should we address cultural issues, social issues, even political issues? As pastors, as evangelists, as leaders in the body, should we exclusively give ourselves to winning the lost, making disciples, teaching the scriptures, or as we do those very things, will we naturally and automatically intersect with culture and therefore be called to address the things around us? This is Michael Brown. This is The Line of Fire, and here's the number for you to call and weigh in, 866-34-TRUTH, 866-348-7884. Do we delude ourselves? Do we distract ourselves? Do we diminish our effectiveness when we focus on political issues, social issues, or say interact with those things rather than focus exclusively on winning the lost, making disciples, teaching the Bible, teaching doctrine, equipping the saints? Do we hurt ourselves in the process, or is this a natural role of shepherds of the sheep? Is this a natural role of those called to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world? Is this part of our service to the world around us? Now, I know my own calling. I am not called to be a local church pastor. I'm always involved in making disciples. I love mentoring people. I love getting close to students and grads and pouring into their lives so that they can bear long-term fruit for the Lord. But I'm not a local church pastor. That's not my calling. I have the utmost admiration for those who are called to be local church pastors and who serve the body as elders and counsel and instruct and are there for the sheep, the flock, day and night. It's not my calling. So, and I'm not only called to travel and preach on revival, travel and preach on holiness, travel and preach on leadership development, travel and preach on evangelism and whatever else. That's not my only call. And I'm not only called to debate rabbis and do Jewish apologetics. I'm also, as you can tell, a daily radio host. And we're interacting with issues around us on a daily basis on talk radio. So I know my calling. I know what the Lord laid on my heart back in 2004, 2005 regarding gay activism. Reach out and resist. Reach out to the people with compassion, resist the agenda with courage. I know my calling, and I'm not trying to impose my calling on you or someone else. But I'm assuming the vast majority of you listening are not leaders, or in terms of leaders within the body. In other words, you're not senior pastor, you're not full-time ministry in a professional sense. You're congregational members, you're involved in church work in different levels. The question is, what do you feel as you look out at the world around us? Are you looking for your pastors to address issues? Are you looking for leaders to equip you to know how to explain things to your kids. No, it's not that the pastor has to be the jack of all trades, that he has to be the world's best apologist in science, and he has to be the world's best apologist in philosophy, and he has to be the world's best counselor, and he has to be the world's best expository preacher, and he has to be the strongest prayer warrior, and he's got to be the best of everything or good in everything. No one's saying that, and no human being can do all of that at the top limit. All right. However, question is, you're there. You're in small groups, Bible studies in your church. You're attending services on Sunday. You're part of a Messianic congregation meeting on Wednesday. You're part of a house church. You're involved. You have leaders. Are you looking for those leaders to address moral and cultural and social issues as well? We're not talking about endorsing political candidates. We're not talking about partisan politics, where you identify our church is a Republican church, our church is a Democratic church. No, we're not talking about that at all. Quite the contrary. But if there's major news going on in the world around us, if there are moral cultural trends, how much should we be addressing those things from the pulpit? How much should pastors and leaders be interacting with those subjects as well? 866-34-TRUTH. Do you think pastors, ministry leaders need to exclusively give themselves to preaching the gospel, winning the lost, making disciples? So a pastor equipping the church, strengthening believers, evangelists reaching out to the lost, teachers deepening people in their knowledge of the word, etc. Is that what they should be doing? Or in doing that, is it inevitable that they'll also intersect with the culture around us? By the way, second half hour of this broadcast today, I'm going to be interacting with a pastor who took a stand because of Islamic indoctrination of his daughter in school. So we'll be coming to that issue as well. We're running a poll right now on Twitter and on Facebook. So here's the poll on Twitter. It asks this question: what's your opinion? Should pastors and leaders just preach the gospel, or should they also comment on relevant social and political issues? All right, so this is our Twitter poll. What's your opinion? Should pastors and Christian leaders just preach the gospel, or should they also comment on relevant social and political issues? Now, when I said just preach the gospel, I know some would say, well, when you preach the gospel, you intersect with those. And others say, no, they're two separate animals. And we gave 4 choices because that's what we can give on Twitter. 1, gospel only. That's it. That's the focus. 2, gospel and culture. 3, depends on calling. 4, other, because we know some people are going to have other perspectives there. And we put this up less than 2 hours ago, first 400-something votes. And I don't want to prejudice you by telling you what the results are. Towards the end of the broadcast, I'll tell you. On Facebook, we asked the same question, but we can only give 2 choices there. So people have to weigh in with other views, gospel only or gospel and culture. But let's think this through for a minute, all right? Let's say that you believe, look, I've got to be focused in my calling. I'm a specialist. I'm a shepherd of the sheep. I'm called to shepherd the flock. I'm called to nourish and nurture believers to be healthy and to grow in the Lord. I'm here to teach, ground them in doctrine, ground them in relationship with the Lord, help them to be solid disciples, warn against false doctrine and teaching as a shepherd. That's my calling. I'm not politically savvy. I don't even watch the news. I know what my calling is and what I'm given to do. All right? Or I'm an evangelist. My heart beats for one thing, winning lost people. I don't care who they are. Muslims, Hindus, atheists, nominal Christians. I don't care who they are. I want to win them. And then I'm going to get them plugged into a local church where they can be discipled. And if I bring up politics, if I bring up culture, if I bring up anything else whatsoever, then it's going to distract me from my calling. All right, number 1, I totally get that. And I totally honor that. And I totally respect that. And remember, I work with folks all around the world in many different cultures. And in some places, the church being such a small remnant, it's not even interfacing with a lot of the culture around it. It's underground. You know, it's just, that's all it is. It's underground in a hostile environment. And it's a given that the world is hostile and against us. All right? So most countries are not like America in that respect and aren't debating separation of church and state issues the way that we do. and don't have some of the spiritual heritage that we have. But let me just flesh this out for a minute. The idea that we focus only on gospel and it doesn't intersect with culture. All right, so you're a pastor, right? And you're once a year you go through doctrinal foundations for new believers, and then you have a series. You preach through whole books of the Bible, right? And you focus on these things, and that drives your preaching, and the messages are being driven by the text that you're in on a given week as you're going through, say, the book of Romans, or you're going through Ephesians, or you're going through the book of Jonah, whatever it is. Okay. Now, let's say you're preaching through Ephesians, and issues come up, Ephesians 5, dealing with sexual immorality. And now that, it opens up a hornet's nest, and next thing, you and the other elders are getting lots of calls from men in the church, from couples. I've got a porn problem. Pastor, I'm dealing with addiction to porn. I'm ashamed to say it, but I'm struggling with this. And then one of your elders comes and says, Pastor, I'm not addicted. I don't think I'm addicted, but it's like every few weeks I find myself looking at porn. And okay, so now you have a problem. And this exists in probably every church with any number of people in America. You got enough people, you're going to have somebody struggling in this area, all right? So aren't you now going to have to intersect with culture on a certain level? Well, I'm just going to deal with being a disciple. Okay, great. Principles of holiness, great. Okay, but what about being online? What about having a cell phone? What about accountability software? What about those kinds of things? Maybe an equipping seminar in your church, because this is a big issue, help people deal with it. Okay, you're preaching through Romans. You're going through the first chapter of Romans. And Paul is speaking explicitly against homosexual practice. Pastor, my son came out and said he's gay. Pastor, they're teaching in our elementary school, they're introducing concepts like transgender. You might be trapped in a girl's body, girl and boy's body. How do we address it? You got to intersect with culture. That's the whole thing. The Great Commission is to go into the world and make disciples of the nations. So win people to the Lord, win the lost to the Lord, and then make disciples. Yes? That is the Great Commission. Well, my question is, how do disciples live? Pastor, on my job now, I'm required to sign like this friend support thing of LGBT activism, or it's going to be marked that I'm told I should do this if I want to get promoted, because everyone can see who's a friend and an ally. But I love the people, but I'm uncomfortable with some of the agenda. What should I do, Pastor? How should I handle this? One of the ushers comes up, Pastor, what do we do? There's a man here wearing a dress, carrying a Bible, and he's expecting to worship with us today. Do we let him? What do we also? We noticed that when he came in, he went in the ladies' room before anyone could say anything. And so how do we handle this? Friends, this is real life. Pastor, my granddaughter's pregnant, and she wants to get an abortion. She's 14. How do we handle that, Pastor? The parents aren't doing well in the Lord, so she's coming to us for counsel. We love her. What do we tell her? Friends, this is real. This is real life. So, of course, as we preach the gospel, we're going to intersect with culture. When you're winning that lost person as an evangelist, they're going to say, but my friend's gay. Is he going to hell? We're going to have to intersect with culture because the gospel intersects with real life. We'll be right back. I've heard it over and over and over again. Today's Jews are not really Jews. Today's Jews are just Ashkenazi. They're converts of the Khazar kingdom. They're European. They're not really Jews. And the real Jews are either Africans or the real Jews are Christians because God's done with natural Israel. Well, what is this based on? Some of it's based on just the latest misinformation and internet myths and things like that. Some of it's based on good research that traces back Jewish origins and recognizes that there's been Jewish intermarriage over the centuries. That's why we come in so many different colors and shapes and forms. But this idea that today's Jews are not really Jews, or that even if Ashkenazi Jews or other Jews are ethnically Jewish, that they're not Jews in God's sight, it's based on a misreading of Romans chapter 9, verse 6. Paul is writing in Romans, and look at what he says in Romans chapter 9, verse 6. But it is not as though the word of God has failed, for not all who are descendant from Israel belong to Israel. Not all who are of Israel are Israel. What was the point that Paul was making? He spoke from Romans 9, 1 to 5 of the anguish that he carried in his heart, the constant pain and anguish that he carried in his heart for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, to whom the promises of God remain. He says, theirs are, not were, but theirs are the promises. All right? But he says, well, it's not as though the word of God failed, because the Messiah came and the promised nation didn't follow. Does that mean the word of God failed because God made these promises to Israel? And his first response is, no, not everyone descended from Israel is Israel. He's not talking about the church as a whole. He's not talking about the Gentile world. He's not talking about everyone else. He's saying that there is a remnant within the nation, just as he says in Romans 11:1. He responds to that again, points out, hey, I'm an Israelite. I'm part of the remnant. So he's saying within the nation, there is an Israel within it.
Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
All right, so join me over on Twitter. That's Dr. Michael L. Brown on Twitter. Make sure you get the two L's in the middle there. Michael L. Dr. Michael L. Brown on Twitter. My question there, what's your opinion? Should pastors and Christian leaders just preach the gospel, or should they also comment on relevant social and political issues? So gospel only, gospel and culture depends on calling and other. So far, overwhelmingly, folks saying gospel and culture. And then same question on Facebook, but we can only ask and give two options there, gospel only, gospel and culture. So even more overwhelmingly on Facebook, people saying gospel and culture. But weigh in there on the Ask Dr. Brown Facebook page, AskDr Brown. All right, just a quick update on YouTube. Some of you are watching right now. You're watching our live video feed on YouTube. So just my normal waving, thumbs up, etc. So you're watching our live stream on YouTube. Others are watching our live stream on Ask Dr. Brown on Facebook. Others are listening live on radio. Others listening live through other means, and others listening later by podcast. But as you know, we put up a new video every day on YouTube, 5 days a week during the week, and then often additional videos, specific things, debates I've had, little teachings, an excerpt from a radio broadcast. We put those up as well. So we've got well over 1,300 videos on YouTube, and with millions of views, many, many millions of views, all of them combined. Okay, so I can't make sense out of what YouTube is doing. I literally can't make sense of this. This is my latest article. I talk about this, and I mention how we have videos with the exact same names, or just one word different, like part 1, part 2, and one of them gets demonetized, so not suitable for all advertisers, and the other's fine. Or here, check this out. We have hundreds of videos waiting for review, meaning they were flagged as not suitable for most advertisers. We then said, please review them manually, but they have to hit a certain threshold of being viewed a certain amount of times within a certain amount of days before they'll review them. All right, so I could list hundreds, but here's a representative sampling of videos that we're waiting for to be reviewed. So these were flagged as not suitable for all advertisers. Are you ready? The Spirit is moving, but are we ready? Oh, man. Oh, gosh. What a controversial, offensive video. How about this one? Answering your toughest Facebook questions. Oh, man, of course. Yeah, that's one of those hot button. Don't want to touch that. It's not suitable for most advertisers. Okay. Debunking contemporary heresies. Oh, yeah, talking about modern church heresies. I mean, that's like Hitler stuff or KKK or hate speech or, it doesn't work. How about this one? You bring the questions, we bring the answers. Yep. Yes, that was demonetized. It's awaiting review. I kid you not. And then we'll have another with almost the identical title. You've got questions, we've got answers, and that one's fine. And the content's no different. How about this one? Oh, this is a bad one. Dr. Brown debates Dr. Theodore Zechariah on the gifts of the Spirit. Oh, that sounds like downright nasty controversial. How about this one? The Real Messiah radio broadcast. Yeah, awaiting review. We've got a bunch because it's several weeks. Each one just has the different date on it. Oh, man, were we foolish ever to even put this on Facebook? Or YouTube, how absolutely silly of us to ever put this on YouTube, to think that YouTube wouldn't flag this in an instant. Let's dig into the Word. Oh yeah, that's a bad one. Let's get into the Bible together. Oh, highly controversial, certainly not suitable for most advertisers. How about this one? You ready? Here's some good news. Yeah, friends, I'm not kidding you. Here's some good news. That's the title of that one. And that got flagged. You say, well, maybe you have critics and they're constantly flagging your videos and marking them and reporting you. Yeah, don't you think YouTube can figure that out? And don't you think there are hundreds and thousands of other YouTube sites where people don't like the content and constantly comment on it negatively? You think YouTube can't figure that out? Google can't figure that out? Now, you have to understand, we put videos on YouTube to make them available for free. The fact that they're monetized means that there might be a 5-second ad that runs at the beginning of them. And if all of the videos yielded a few $100s in income a month, so it's nothing in terms of our overall needs and ministry work, it just goes back into ministry work to produce more videos for you. So it's not even a matter like we're making tens of thousands of dollars a month at starting our income. No, I mean, we're doing all this for free. We even advertise. We pay to advertise some key videos as donors give us money. Hey, get this video out. We pay to do it. So what we pay is far more than what we bring in. The whole goal is to get the message out. And yet this is what we're dealing with. And here's what's even more crazy. Our video, Can You Be Gay and Christian, got demonetized permanently. In other words, after review, it went back and forth like 4 times, which I've never seen. And then they said, that's it, not suitable. Okay. Then they said, you're not allowed to advertise this. It's just teaching what the Bible says. No, we're not allowed to advertise it. We cannot pay Google/YouTube money to promote that on YouTube. Even though it's simply saying what the Bible says, no hate speech, not attacking anyone, just opening up the scriptures and saying what we have believed for 2,000 plus years. But let's go a step further. I interviewed a pastor who's an ex-gay man, came out of homosexuality decades ago, and has a ministry to help people with sexual brokenness, unwanted same-sex attraction, etc. So that got flagged, not suitable for most advertisers. We requested review. And I don't know, a week or 2 later, they said, good news, this is suitable for all advertisers. Well, hang on. If you want to pick a more controversial video, that's the more controversial one. Not Can You Be Gay and Christian, but this man's testimony and the things that he shares from his own life, that would be the more controversial one, but that one is okay. I'm glad that one's okay. I'm glad that one didn't get demonetized, but for one, it's like you say, the sun is shining. A video on the sun is shining. That's flagged. Not suitable for all advertisers. Another video. A video that the sun shines. That one's fine. So it is the other lack of consistency that we take issue with. Plus the way that some things clearly are censored or demonetized or pushed down so that less people will see them. Hey, let me address one other issue. And then I want to switch gears and talk to a pastor who stood up against Islamic indoctrination in his school. You might say, well, why bother to speak out at all? Because things are only going to get worse. So why bother? Well, one reason is if we don't speak out, they're only going to get worse more quickly, right? If we are the light, if we are the salt, if we are the moral conscience of the society, if we don't speak out, things will only get worse more quickly. That's one. 2, when we speak out, people will be held accountable. In other words, part of our role here is to be a witness and to raise a standard. So now people are accountable. When they stand before God, they can't say nobody told us, nobody warned us, nobody addressed us. And number 3, when we speak out on issues, we awaken ourselves. Trust me, when I address issues of sexual purity and adultery and pornography, I do it searching my own life as well. I do it examining my own heart, my own thoughts, my own motivations as well. When I address issues having to do with LGBT activism, it breaks my heart more for the people and deepens my burden for them. So we awaken ourselves when we speak out. Another, we encourage others to stand. We hear this day and night, Dr. Brown, thank you for taking a stand. Now I'm taking a stand in my school. I remember on Twitter hearing from a 15-year-old girl, and she said, high school student, she said, you're about the only reason I've been able to preserve my sanity in the midst of the school, and you're like the grandfather I never had. And then I looked up to see who she was, looked up about her bio, and saw she was putting out YouTube videos articulating her viewpoint already. Wow. Just for that, to strengthen a 15-year-old in a hostile environment, this is more than worth it, whatever little sacrifices we make. Another is sometimes we can turn the tide. Sometimes our voices do make a difference. We hear this on an individual basis. I remember some years back getting an unbelievable testimony from a woman raised in a Catholic home, but totally hostile to conservative positions, ended up becoming very anti-Christian, anti-Catholic, and it was mainly because of siding with those who identify as gay and lesbian, etc. And she got challenged about some of her views, went to a library in Boston, found my book, A Queer Thing Happened to America, in the library, read it, and had her views changed, wrote an email to us, which I decided to read on the air. And that particular day was the day that she tuned in for the first time in her life on what used to be our station in Boston, WEZE. The first time she ever tuned in, it happened to be the day that I was reading her email. So she called and gave the rest of the details. Amazing. So you never know. We can turn the tide. And then a 6th reason, God calls us to speak. God calls us to stand. God calls us to be a prophetic voice for him in the world around us. And therefore we do it by obedience. And then give you a 7th reason from my friend Dr. White, that God is glorified through our speaking even to those who will not hear. As he told Isaiah in Isaiah 6, speak but the people won't listen. The same in Ezekiel 2, speak but the people won't listen. So God is glorified even in that as we speak and people do not hear. But friends, I know that you want me to keep speaking. I know that you're cheering me on and saying, Dr. Brown, we need you to do it. And friends, I need you to stand wherever you stand, and God is expecting us to do it. And by his grace, if we put winning the lost, making disciples first, and then being voices in the culture in the midst of that, we'll make a difference, friends. All right, interview with a pastor you don't want to miss. Stay with us. Hey friends, I want to take a moment to thank you for standing with us and show you firsthand where your funds have gone, the renovations, the upgrades to our studio, and what we've been able to accomplish with your help. Hey, come around here. I want you to see something. I don't think we've ever shown this before. So this is how things operate. All this brand new, just in recent months, recent weeks. Right there, big screen, as I can see what's happening that we need to be seeing. Over here are different clocks for radio, for different segments in time. Over here, this is, if we're putting things on live stream, you're going to see what I'm seeing right here. Over here, this is where I'm in contact with the rest of the radio studios. Calls come in, I interact over there. And right over there, you can see where there's a second camera. That will be used when we have guests in studio so that we can get everyone on camera. Right now, we haven't been able to do that, but we're going to be able to do that. This is also going to enable us to have different angles as we do Skype videos and Skype debates. But let me show you some of the most exciting stuff. Hey, come this way. All right, I want you to meet Caleb. Caleb is our video, audio, computer tech expert. He's new here. He's only part-time. We need him here full-time. We are now able to do our daily live stream of our radio show. So you're watching it on video. You're hearing an audio clip on the radio. You're watching a video on YouTube. Something happens in the news, boom, they're on it. We've got high-tech equipment. Pull it up, put it on the screen. I can talk about it, read it to you as you're watching at home. It's amazing. And We now have new equipment that's going to enable me on the road to do high quality live stream of my radio show in America, even in other countries. And we got a big gap here. We need a major new computer. Not only will it enable us to get things out even more quickly, so if something happens in the news, you're frustrated out. What does Dr. Brown have to say? No problem. We got it covered within minutes. It's up, it's out. But we need this for post-production as well. We need one more person sitting here. If you can believe it, the 1,000+ videos that we have out, plus we record in there from the Ask Me Anything broadcast for God TV and the NRB TV Line of Fire broadcast, recorded right in there in our studio. We do all of that with me and 1.5 employees. We need to add Caleb full-time. We need one more person in here. We need that computer. With that, friends, the sky is the limit for what we can put out. We are your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. Help us amplify your voice. Together we're making a difference. A generation is being impacted. So your one-time gift goes a long way, really, in helping us advance this Jesus revolutionary cause. And we'll be back with more updates as they happen.
Fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
You know, there's a line that's often crossed with many of us where we're not going to get involved. We're not going to take a stand. We'll let things pass. We'll look the other way. We'll say this is not my concern until it touches our own children, until it touches our own families. And then we say, sometimes a little too late, but sometimes that's when we say, I'm going to get involved. Now you have crossed a line. And friends, a tremendous amount of indoctrination is taking place with our kids in the public school system, sometimes in Christian schools that are not deeply grounded in Scripture, constantly through the media and social media, and as parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, as singles involved with young people, as educators. We cannot ignore these things. We must stand, we must speak. This is Michael Brown. This is The Line of Fire. If you have a question or comment that is relevant, here's the number to call, 866-34-TRUTH, 866-348-7884. I want to bring on the air with me now Reverend Rich Penkoski. He came to faith in 1996, was delivered from drugs and witchcraft in one night. And in 2012, he founded Warriors for Christ as well as socialcross.org. Married to his wife, Amanda. They have 6 children. And I found out about Rich's story and thought, you know, this is something that we ought to talk about on the broadcast today. Rich, welcome to The Line of Fire.
Hi, Dr. Brown. How are you?
Great to have you on with us. Hey, before we talk about the present, let's talk about the past. So, drugs, witchcraft, what was your life like before the Lord saved you?
Well, I know some people are going to find it hard to believe, but I was a heroin addict, and I was actually in a cult of vampirism where I drank human blood. And I had a bunch of friends that were trying to get me to go to church, and of course I always rejected it until one night they said that they were prompted to come to my apartment and see, you know, hey, I want to check out my bike, you know, let's go to Rich's house. We go there, and they said, where are you guys going? And they said, we're going to church. And I went, I want to go out of nowhere. And to make a long story short, I went there. I had never seen a born-again church before, so all of that was new to me. And it was a prayer night of all nights, by the way. So I went up, and they prayed for me, and I was delivered. And that night on, haven't touched it, left the cult and everything else that night.
Wow. The Lord is amazing and does his work in incredible ways. And Rich, when you say you're involved in a cult, drinking human blood, I mean, what was the philosophy of this? How overtly satanic was it?
Well, that's the thing. It wasn't. We didn't call it satanic. I mean, now I know better, but we didn't call it satanic then. It was about drinking people's blood. Was about it's almost like this is how you show you love one another. It's one of the most intimate things that you can do as human beings is drink each other's blood, and that's what it was about.
Wild. All right, so the Lord sets you free, delivers you. Often when we get radically saved, that produces in us a deeper commitment to the Lord. Sometimes the church world around us can seem superficial because we were given over to darkness, now we're given over to light. Have you always had a deep passion that just like you gave yourself to the things of darkness, now you want to give yourself to the things of the Lord?
I have, and you said it dead on, because when I went to church, I had friends of mine, the two people that brought me to church, they went back into drugs, and at the time I couldn't understand how and why. And it's because they were brought up in a church, kind of a lukewarm environment, so they didn't have that experience, that, as I call it, my Paul moment, so to speak, that just blinding light. Go, oh my gosh, this is real. They kind of were brought up in that environment, so they always kept going back to it, whereas I never did.
Yeah, and understandable. I mean, we need to put our roots deep down in the Lord. And Rich, before we get to the very present, let's talk about Warriors for Christ and the socialcross.org website. What are these things? What's your heart in this?
Well, Warriors for Christ was something we started, and originally it was about traditional marriage. I had seen what was coming, and I said, I'm getting sick and tired of this. I have kids. So we started it initially as a fight against same-sex marriage. And then it morphed into Warriors for Christ, in that we realized that there's a lot more issues than just that. There's abortion and a lot of other things. And on top of that, there's also a need for different types of ministry, apologetics, polemics, all that stuff. So we kind of created Warriors for Christ to do all of that. And then as we grew and started speaking out, Facebook started censoring us, kind of what they do to you, to the point where they actually removed our page. American Family Association got involved. We received death threats every day, and Facebook did nothing about that, whereas they censored us, blocked us, banned me, it seems like every other day. So we've created Social Cross, which is the Christian version of Facebook, so to speak, to counteract that, and here we are.
All right, and you sent my assistant a note earlier. What happened when you posted a link that you were going to be on our broadcast today?
They blocked the link.
Blocked it, meaning?
It would not let me post it. It let me post on the page. However, when I went to Facebook Messenger to send it to different group chats I'm in or different friends, it would not let me send it. It gave a little red exclamation point and blocked the link.
Interesting. Did you get a screenshot of that by any chance?
I do, and I emailed it to your associate there. I also CC'd him on the email that I had sent to Facebook policy team in regards to this.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I didn't see that yet, but appreciate you doing it. And I know that when you said you posted something on your Facebook page as opposed to the normal traffic that you get, it got minimal traffic.
Almost nothing. I mean, we started yesterday. I posted it again today. And I wanted to see, because this is an issue we deal with Facebook all the time because of our issues with them. I have access to a couple of the policy team directors there. And I pointed out how, we get thousands and thousands of views and, hundreds and hundreds of shares. And then we shared your link, and we got almost nothing.
Yeah, and of course, when you factor in that our Facebook page has about 560,000 people, then you have to wonder, okay. And the same thing, when we had, say, one fifth of what we have, we could reach as many as 40 or 50 million people in a week, and probably on average at least 30 million. And then as we've grown to 4 or 5 times the size, our reach can be 1/10 or 1/100th of what it was. So I did forward that information to my contact at Facebook and say, look, you guys are before Congress right now being challenged about net equality. So these are not things we're making up. These are very real things that we experience. All right, Rich, your kids, how old are they from the oldest to the youngest?
I have a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old, 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 3-year-old, and an almost 2-year-old.
All right. So you got from the teens down to the toddlers. What happened that got you involved with your local school district?
Well, there's a couple things. At the beginning of the year, this is really what started with the school. And let me just say at the bat, a lot of people say, why don't I put my kids in a Christian school? And I have 6 children. And I don't know if people know or not, but Christian schools are extremely expensive. It's crazy expensive, which I find actually disheartening that, Christian schools are talking about regular school, but or homeschooling, with 6 kids and babies running around, plus running, trying to get Social Cross for running and everything else, it's next to impossible. Plus, I'm a taxpayer, so my kids have no reason not to go to school here. So in September, my oldest daughter, they showed her a pro-gay film, and told her not to tell their parents. And this is really what started it with me with the school.
All right, so I want to unpack this for a second. And by the way, I've said for years, when Christian leaders started saying in California, everybody pull your kids out of public school, I said the only way we can say this is if we work in a concerted way to make that possible. Because you have plenty of parents that are not capable of homeschooling for one reason or another. You have plenty of parents who are unable to afford Christian school for their kids. And Christian schools run on I mean, the budgets are really tight and people get paid little. So they're sacrificing, but they need funds. Others don't have a school in their area. So and then some do feel called to send their kids into public school, and every district is different as well. But if we're going to say pull your kids out, then we need to have a holistic solution, because it's easier said than done in many cases. But right. So all that to say, I want to make sure I have this exactly right. I know you said it plainly, but I want to break it down for everyone. Your daughter, young teenager, in school, is shown a pro-gay film, and you said explicitly they said to her, do not tell your parents about this. Those words, I mean, how did they communicate that?
Those exact words. What happened was it was National Suicide Prevention Week, which, of course, nobody has a problem with that. But what they did was they showed a video of two teenage boys in bed together. They had sex toys in the video under the guise of suicide prevention. And then they said, listen, don't go home until your parents are showed you this video. And, of course, my kids, because we're Christian, we raised them Christian, and they know that the minute somebody says, don't tell your parents, that's the time they tell us. So my daughter came home and told me, and I called the school, and the school admitted the video was shown. It was not part of the curriculum. The teacher, of course, blamed it on the students, that the students wanted to see it. My daughter says, no, that's not true. But, the Christian Post wrote a story about it and whatnot, but the Board of Education just said, that it wasn't part of the curriculum, it will never happen again, that kind of thing.
So they were apologetic. They claimed, gave the false reasons for showing it. But I mean, and again, how old was your daughter seeing this?
She was 14.
Okay. So friends, 14 years old. Your kid goes to school to learn math and to learn history.
No, this is an English class.
Right. Okay. So in an English class, so you're learning grammar, your writing skills and top English literature and the whole bit. And you end up seeing not just something that is saying, hey, look, maybe you think you're gay and that's okay. Don't get depressed over it. Don't commit suicide. Not just that, but promoting sexuality between gay minors. I mean, it's outrageous. If it had been heterosexual, it would have been bad enough. But to make it an homosexual on top of it crosses yet another line. How did you feel? We got a minute before the break. How did you feel when your daughter came home and told you that?
I was completely incensed, and I just couldn't believe, because you hear about these things happening, and and it happens to my kids, and I'm not one to sit there and take it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to let the public school sit there and push this stuff on my Christian children. That's not their job. It's my job to teach social issues to my kids, not the schools. But what I find most concerning about this is no other parent said a word. Even when they found out about this, no other parent in our area here said a word. Nothing.
And there are other Christian parents?
Of course, everybody says they're Christian, but at the same point, too, it's I don't want to get involved. I don't want to, rock the boat. I don't want to cause any trouble. It was those kinds of things.
Yeah, unreal. What's even more sad, Rich, is that in some cases, it was no big deal to the kids because they're exposed to this stuff all the time, and their parents don't know that their kids don't agree with mom and dad about what the Bible says. All right. Look, we need about 1 million more parents that say 100 million. Something happens, this line gets crossed. We say something, we do something. All right, right back with Rich Penkoski. There's more. Oh, there's more.
As a veteran of the United States military, I can finally get the opportunity to enjoy special events.
Hey friends, I want to take a moment to thank you for standing with us and show you firsthand where you're... Is Satan everywhere at the same time? Is the devil omnipresent? I see no scriptural emphasis on that or no scriptural backing for that whatsoever. God alone is omnipresent. Angels are not omnipresent. Created beings are not omnipresent, and Satan is both a created being and an angel, a fallen created being, a fallen angel. You know, in Matthew, the 4th chapter, Matthew chapter 4, verse 11, after Jesus is being tempted in the wilderness, it says this, "Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and were ministering to him." So Satan left, angels came. Neither of them are omnipresent. Just because Satan is a spirit being, and we can't see him, you can have the feeling, well, he's omnipresent. No, only God fills the universe. Only, as it said of God in Psalm 139, where can I go from your spirit? Only of God, as it says in Jeremiah 23, that he fills heaven and earth. It's not said of Satan. Satan is not omnipresent. Satan is a powerful, dark, spiritual being, very powerful, very deceptive, and he has a well-organized army of demon powers under him, whether those are fallen angels or wherever we get the class of demons from, and they are sent out. And when we resist demons, we are resisting Satan. When it tells us in 1 Peter 5 to resist Satan, it doesn't mean that each of us is personally resisting him because he's everywhere at the same time. No, he comes and he goes. Just like in Matthew, the 4th chapter, he leaves and looks for more opportune time. Satan is not omnipresent. Let's not give him credit he doesn't deserve. Only God is almighty. Only God is omniscient. Only God is omnipresent. Absolutely not Satan.
3-4 Truth. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
So I typed in the name Rich Penkoski during our break, Penkoski, and CBNnews.com reported this on January 9th. His Warriors for Christ Facebook page shut down Pastor Sue's West Virginia over same-sex marriage, and it even recounts here that CBN News previously reported that threats against him grew so severe last summer that local law enforcement officials advised Penkoski to move his family for safety concerns after receiving feces in the mail and X-rated material sent to his home. Rich, this is the first time that we've talked, but of course, we get the daily death wishes and the angry emails and posts and comments and occasional literal death threats and things like that. So we understand people often attacking the Lord we serve, some people reacting out of hurt and pain, others it's just the darkness, hating the light. So I have no idea whatsoever in terms of how you've said things or conducted yourself or whatever. I have no clue whatsoever. I'm simply right now intersecting as someone on the front lines in the same way. As you start getting this junk, I mean, literally stuff sent to your door, literally local law enforcement officials telling you you need to relocate your family. What does your wife say? I mean, the two of you are in this together, you're raising your kids together. How do you feel when it becomes that personal?
Well, to be honest, as a Christian, I'm not really that surprised. I mean, we knew this was going to happen, but at the same point, too, we know it's going to happen, but we're also not told to roll over and just die. We're not told to sit there and take it. So these groups, these extremists, they can say and do whatever, and we may have to, do things we do to protect our family, but we're not going to stop.
Yeah, and obviously...
And the difference is...
Yeah, go ahead.
And the difference is, like you said, we said, we have never, now we will say things like homosexuality is a sin, which is biblical. And now that is what sets them off. We have never once, as Christians, wished harm on anybody. We've never expressed. As a matter of fact, on my page, if somebody does that, I will block immediately for doing that.
Right.
Because as much as I don't agree with the lifestyle, I don't want to see that happen to them either.
And you don't taunt people. You don't use insulting names just to provoke them.
Correct.
Yeah. So, friends, this is what we say all the time. No matter how nice you are, you're never going to be nicer than Jesus. And the world nailed him to a cross. And he said, expect to be treated the same way. All right. So, and again, Rich, I'm covering these things so that we can air things out because they don't know. And people make certain assumptions. And you have all the naysayers. So, we look, this is going to come our way. And it is no surprise. If it wasn't for standing for moral and cultural issues, it's going to come just for standing for the preaching of the cross. And people are being beheaded for the gospel day and night. We shouldn't be so upset about losing friends on Facebook. So
that's right.
What is the latest thing that happened now with Islam?
So my daughter comes home in May. And again, I don't think the timing of this was coincidental either. she comes home and made with this assignment because they're doing world religions, which in and of itself is fine. But then she comes home with this packet, and it was a good 30 pages on Islam. And I'm talking in depth to the point where they showed them how to walk around, do the Kaaba with the prayer. They showed them prayer position. They asked them to write down and recite, certain key verses in the Quran, the surahs, that says Allah is God, Allah is merciful and compassionate. They then asked them to fast for 24 hours to kind of give them a sense of what Ramadan is like. And then we come to the end where they ask the kids to write the Shahada in Arabic under the guise of calligraphy. And I told my daughter, I said, because my daughter said, Dad, I don't want to do this. I don't think this is right. And I agreed with her, and I said, no, you're not doing this. And I called the school. They weren't there. He called back the next day, and the principal himself, he said that he wasn't aware of it, but he did talk to the teacher who, said this assignment was optional. And I said, well, it's funny you say that because the Christian and the Judaism one, which by the way didn't have any tenets of faith involved in there, those were not optional. But now I raise an issue, and all of a sudden Islam is optional. And I said, even if it was, this is not even okay. So the next day, he said, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. It's just up to the assignment. I said, great. The next day, my daughter comes home with the packet again, with everything crossed out with the exception of the Shahada assignment. So I called him again, and I said, I thought you took care of this. And he said, no. She made it clear it was optional. I said, well, my daughter didn't think it was optional, and neither did the neighbor's kid. They all thought it was an assignment. And I said, what are you going to do about this? I said, this is akin to blasphemy as far as my faith goes. You're asking my daughter to write down that Allah is God and Muhammad is messenger. I do not believe that. My children do not believe that. And you're sitting there telling them to do it under the guise of calligraphy. It's Arabic, which has nothing to do with calligraphy. And then I went on to explain to him how calligraphy was invented during the Shang dynasty in China, 2,000 years before Muhammad even existed. So he's like, and the principal of the school said to me, Mr. Penkoski, not everybody knows about that much like you do. And I said, yeah, but I'm not an educator. You are.
Yeah,
shouldn't you be making sure that you teach us it's correct?
Yeah, I mean, this is like in a Jewish school, Rich, that the students are giving an assignment and they have to write out, I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior, as an exercise, or, you're learning to write Greek, so you have to write it out in Greek. And the Shahada, the confession, La ilaha illallah wa Muhammadun Rasulullah, that's what you get someone to say. That would be, you call like the Islamic altar call. Make this confession. Like Christians have the sinner's prayer.
Well, and worse than that,
is
they explain them. You see these videos of these people getting beheaded, and before they do, they say, "Listen, if you recite this, we won't kill you."
Right, and you got to recite it. You got to recite it in Arabic. So you got it right. So,
and then you're and you're a Muslim.
Yeah. So I mean, when I say the words, because I studied the thing, I'm just saying what they say.
Right.
But
you don't have to explain to me.
Right. No, but we got a bunch of listeners and viewers. The point is, friends, that's what you try to get someone to do. Say this in Arabic to make the confession, to avoid beheading. This is beyond outrageous. And Rich, it's one thing, and we've seen it in the schools for years, that other religions are promoted positively. You read about other religions and they're wonderful, and then you read about Christianity and it's the critical view, and scholars don't know if Jesus really existed or if he rose from the dead, but Muhammad was a great prophet and Buddha was a great thinker, and all this stuff. But
well, here's what they taught here.
Go ahead.
What they taught here. In Christianity, they taught that Christianity is fractured, that in Christians, we don't really know what we believe, and that's how they presented Christianity. And the teacher told my daughter that Jesus is not the Son of God. And then comes Islam. Islam is peaceful. They wanted the kids to write down, the stereotypes and the propaganda against Islam. It's for all part of this assignment. If you'd like, I'll send you a copy of it. I have it saved. The assignment, you can take a look.
Yeah, please.
In comparison to the 4 pages of Christianity and the 3 or 4 pages of Judaism, which, by the way, wasn't Judaism. It was Israel, not Judaism at all. So it was really promoting, like you said, glamorizing Islam over all the others. They painted Christianity to be like, we don't really know what we believe. We were just kind of there, and the Crusades and Inquisition, and that was really it.
Extraordinary. So, Rich, let me ask you this. Who developed this curriculum? Was this something exclusively put together as a handout by this teacher?
It was, but the school, and that was the issue that we said, was the teacher, because in this school district here, at least in West Virginia, the teachers have discretion to supplement the materials without review. So that was the thing here. And the school board backed the teacher and said, nope, she was fine. She's always done this and everything else. Now, this is where it gets really, really outrageous, because after all these objections, after all of this, after the excuse of it was optional, after all of this, would you believe that my daughter came home again a third time with the same assignment?
Yeah, I believe it.
A third time with it.
I believe it.
And then the end of the year comes. My wife was monitoring the grades because they have this system called N grades. My daughter's grade went from an A to an F, and then she got an F on that assignment. So I said, wait a second. I thought that was optional. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I need to correct that. It wasn't optional. There was a lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't believe it's happening.
Yeah, so Rich, you know the only shocker to me in all this, I expect the worst in some public schools. Some are excellent, and thank God for every public school teacher, sacrificing administrator, people working in the public schools. A lot of challenges, often underfunded as well. We appreciate those trying to make a difference and help kids, and with a burden to do that. So we commend the good and we call out the bad. But, Rich, what's shocking to me is that we should be hearing from hundreds of thousands of people like you every day, to the point this is normal, whereas your voice is the exception to the rule, and this kind of junk is occurring in our schools all around the country, which means either kids aren't telling the parents, or the parents are indifferent, or they're afraid to get involved.
Well, look what happened in New Jersey.
Yeah, so listen.
Look what happened in New Jersey. Libby Hiddenrath in New Jersey.
But tell you what, I got to jump in because we're about to be out of time. So let's just do this, friends. Socialcross.org. Check it out if you're looking for a Christian alternative to Facebook. Socialcross.org. Hey, it costs you nothing to get involved and get an identity there and see what's happening. All right, that's one thing. Rich, send me that material if you have the actual pages on Christianity, Judaism as well, and we'll help shout this out to amplify your voice together. So parents, listen to what this man is doing. Listen to what he's saying. He's getting involved, and he's making a difference. If enough of you speak out, we can turn the tide. God bless you, my brother. Keep up the great work, and I'm sure we'll be in touch again.
Yeah, God bless you, Dr. Brown. Thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, you are very welcome. We wanted to shout this out to the world. All right, friends, we are out of time. Join me tonight on YouTube and Facebook for the Real Messiah broadcast. We're going to have a fascinating Jewish outreach show tonight. And then tomorrow, right here, same time, same place, Thoroughly Jewish Thursday.